I asked what other medical problems Mr. Jackson had, if he had any cardiac history, if he had ever had a history of a blood clot, if he had any history of drug use.
And in response to that question regarding medical history, what were you told?
Sorry, no to all of them.
In every scenario where you've given propofol for procedural sedation or otherwise, is it fair to say it is done in a room as depicted in 48 with all the necessary medical and monitoring equipment?
This is a picture of our trauma bay, not our typical emergency department room, but procedural sedation would be performed in a room in which there would be a monitor and the patient would be on the monitor, and airway equipment would be in the room, oxygen, and any equipment we would need to deal with any complication is in the room and set up.
Okay, you would have all the necessary medical monitoring equipment, monitoring the heart, monitoring oxygen saturation levels, blood pressure, capnography, all of those types of monitors, correct?
Respiratory rate, yes.
In this case, when there was drug-induced respiratory and cardiovascular failure, but it's not a case of too little, too late. It seems like a case of too late because Dr. Murray was not able to give me the time or the time interval. What I feared was that time was not on Mr. Jackson's side, that we were running too late. I don't use propofol when there's no procedure being done.
Okay, because you've never practiced outside a hospital, have you?
I do practice outside of the hospital. I have outpatient clinic. I don't use propofol in the outpatient setting. And even in the inpatient setting, I pointed it out to you that I only have it used in the ICU or the procedure rooms.
Could you describe the results as far as the stomach contents, please?
Sure. We detected lidocaine in our basic drug screen and quantitated at 1.6 milligrams total drug, and that was performed by criminalist Fu, as well as propofol, again, and we found 0.13 milligrams, and that was performed by the same analyst, Lintemuth.
What is depicted on that line and what are the findings?
Propofol. I personally did the test and detected propofol in the urine.
Did you determine what the cause of death was as it related to Michael Jackson's death on June 25th, 2009?
Yes.
What was the cause of death, Dr. Rogers?
The cause was acute propofol intoxication, and the contributing condition was benzodiazepine effect. You would have to assume that Mr. Jackson woke up, although he was, at least to some extent, under the influence of propofol and other sedatives. He was able to somehow administer propofol to himself. The circulation time of the body passed. In other words, if you inject propofol in the leg, it takes a while for it to get to the brain. And then he stops breathing, and all of this takes place in the 2-minute period of time.
Had you ever heard of any doctor using propofol in their practice of medicine to treat insomnia?
I've never heard of it.
If the patient, Michael Jackson, was able to administer to himself either lorazepam and or propofol without Conrrad Murray's knowledge, doesn't that by necessity mean Conrrad Murray was neglecting or abandoning the patient for that to happen without Dr. Murray's knowledge?
Yes, sir. I want to, again, I didn't think I said this, but when you monitor a patient, you never leave their side, especially after giving propofol. Can I understand, are you pointing out that Mr. Jackson was an addict for drugs, and that would make a difference? Because if you're saying that I'm getting informed consent, I'm going to give you this addictive, dangerous drug, and I know I'm giving you informed consent to an addict, to someone who really wants the drug, that they may agree to it no matter what. Is that your question?
Yes.
Then I wouldn't be offering it to the person in the first place. Michael, at 12 o'clock, okay, was Michael Jackson savable when Dr. Murray found him? Is that
Yes.
what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yes.
Here you have a patient that potentially may have substance abuse problems, or clearly it sounds like he had substance abuse problems, and you're providing this environment where drugs are readily available. They're not locked up there at an arm's reach. That is definitely a foreseeable complication.
The judgment that you wrote in your report that it's incomprehensible that propofol could be used for insomnia.
Absolutely.
But it's not incomprehensible by everybody, is it?
Again, the physicians in China were performing an experiment, and in a highly monitored setting. In standard practice, particularly in a home setting without appropriate monitoring, it is absolutely incomprehensible and unacceptable.
In this case, specific to this case, if we assume is true that Michael Jackson requested that he be given propofol, and you as a qualified doctor knows that that is not only inappropriate but life-threatening, you have a professional, moral, and ethical obligation to say no, correct?
That's absolutely right.